The holographic star map dominated the observation deck of Council Central Command. 217 sectors glowed in soft blue light, each one a testament to order, to careful governance, to the peace that the Galactic Containment Council had maintained for 3 centuries. Overseer Malthus Crane stood before it as he had every morning for 42 years, his 4 eyes scanning the display with the practiced ease of a master surveyor examining familiar territory. He was 64 standard years old. His chitin plates had begun to dull with age, showing the faint stress fractures that came with decades of responsibility. But his mind remained sharp, his purpose clear. The Council governed 217 species across 47 sectors. They maintained peace not through violence, but through
Status
observation.
report. Shields are failing.
Through careful
Confirmed.
restriction
Enemy is
when
closing.
necessary.
Dive power to weapons.
Through
Fire
containment
will
when
out.
all other options failed. And containment Malthus Crane believed with absolute certainty had never failed. Status report cycle 73,425, he said as translator, rendering the words in the formal cadence required for official records. The hologram responded to his voice, zooming through layers of data until it focused on a small yellow star at the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm. Sol system, 3rd planet from its sun, humanity's cradle and cage. Population holding steady at 11 billion, reported Science Director Syria Vex from her station below. Her chitinous fingers danced across the data tablet with the nervous energy that characterized her species. Containment barrier network functioning within expected parameters. All 24 quantum inhibitor stations report normal operations. 0 attempted breaches in the last standard year. Crane allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The containment of humanity had been the Council's greatest achievement and its most necessary precaution. He remembered the day 42 years ago when he was just a junior analyst when the reports first came through. A new species had achieved faster-than-light capability. Young, aggressive, technologically innovative in ways that made the Council's xenobiologists uncomfortable. They came from a world the survey teams classified as Death World Class 7, high gravity. Violent weather systems, atmospheric composition that would be toxic to most galactic species, an evolutionary pressure cooker that had forged something the galaxy had rarely seen, a species that thrived on adversity. The Council had acted swiftly, not with violence, not with threats, simply with restriction. 24 quantum inhibitor stations positioned in a perfect sphere around the Sol system, each one a masterwork of exotic matter engineering. Ships that tried to cross the boundary found their faster-than-light drives destabilized. Their exotic matter cores collapsed into normal space. Their dreams of galactic exploration turned to diagnostic nightmares and emergency shutdowns. The humans had tested the barrier exactly 3 times in the first decade. Then they had stopped trying. 207 years of peaceful isolation. 207 years of humanity developing internally, building their orbital infrastructure, expanding through their own system, but never again reaching for the stars beyond their grasp. Safe, contained, controlled. Passive sensor data, Crane asked as he did every morning. Humanity continues standard internal development. Vex replied. Mining operations throughout their system show normal activity patterns. Orbital infrastructure expanding at predicted rates. No anomalies detected in the past cycle. No anomalies. The 2 most beautiful words in the containment business. Behind Crane, the doors to the observation deck whispered open. War Marshal Drenth entered with his characteristic heavy footsteps. The veteran had served the Council for 60 years, his body bearing scars from conflicts most species had forgotten. He approached the holographic display with the air of a man who had seen too much war to trust any peace completely. Morning briefing, Overseer Drenth said. All border sectors report standard patrol status. No incursions, no conflicts, no threats to Council stability. Excellent, Crane said. He gestured, and the hologram shifted, pulling back to show the broader galactic map. 300 years of careful observation. 300 years of maintaining order through wisdom rather than force. Through imprisonment rather than engagement, Drenth muttered. Crane turned to face him. You disapprove of containment, Policy Marshal. I disapprove of assumptions, Overseer. The translator carried an edge that the veteran's natural vocalizations could not. We assume that because a species is dangerous, they must be caged. We assume that because we can cage them, we should. We assume that cages once built will hold forever. The containment of humanity has held for 207 years, Crane said evenly. The mathematics of our exotic matter engineering do not allow for failure. The quantum inhibitor stations are built with redundancy factors of... His data tablet chimed. It was a soft sound barely noticeable above the ambient hum of the observation deck's environmental systems. But Crane had been overseer for 42 years. He knew every alert tone, every priority signal, every gradation of urgency built into the council's communication protocols. This one made his secondary heart skip a beat. Overseer Vex said, her antennae twitching with sudden attention, "I'm receiving an automated alert from the containment network." Crane opened the notification on his tablet. Read it once, read it again. The numbers did not change. Station 7 reports a diagnostic anomaly, he said slowly, careful to keep his voice level. Quantum field integrity at 92%. The observation deck went silent. 92%. 8% degradation in a system designed to operate at 99.997% efficiency. That's impossible, Drenth said, and for the first time in decades, Crane heard uncertainty in his voice. Perform full system diagnostic on Station 7, Crane ordered. Authorization Crane 01. Execute immediately. The response came back in less than 30 seconds. Too fast. Automated systems did not hesitate unless the answer was already known, already calculated, already certain. Station 7 confirms anomaly. Vex read from her display, her usual academic confidence wavering. Quantum field integrity degrading. Current reading 91%. Exotic matter matrix showing fluctuation outside acceptable parameters. Crane's primary hands moved before his conscious mind fully processed the implications. Expand diagnostic to all stations. I want full status reports from every inhibitor in the network. The holographic display erupted with data streams. 24 points of light representing 24 quantum inhibitor stations perfectly positioned around humanity's system. Each one a masterwork of council engineering. Each one designed to last 10,000 years without maintenance. Each one showing degradation. Station 12 reporting similar readings. An analyst called from the sensor pit below. 93% field integrity. Station 19 at 91%. Station 4 at 88%. The numbers cascaded across Crane's display like an avalanche of impossibility. He watched as the perfect sphere of containment, 2 centuries of council engineering, began to show cracks in its fundamental structure. This does not make sense, Vex whispered, her scientific mind visibly struggling with the contradiction. Quantum inhibitors don't degrade. The exotic matter matrices are self-sustaining. Even if one failed, which should not be possible, the others would compensate. The network is designed to maintain full functionality even with 20% of stations offline. Station 6 just went dark, another analyst interrupted. The holographic display shifted. One of the 24 points of light surrounding the Sol system flickered and died, simply ceased to exist on every sensor array the council possessed. Crane felt something cold settle in his primary stomach. In 300 years of council operations across 217 monitored species, not a single containment station had ever failed. The exotic matter engineering was beyond failure, beyond age, beyond any force that conventional physics could bring to bear. Bring up Station 6's last transmission, he ordered, his voice cutting through the rising murmur of confusion in the observation deck. The hologram shifted, displaying the station's final data burst. Crane read through the technical specifications, the diagnostic reports, the automated failure analysis. And then he saw it buried in the raw sensor logs, time-stamped exactly 17 seconds before total systems failure. An energy signature. Unidentified origin. Detected inside the station itself. Inside. Was that sabotage? Vex's voice was barely audible. Impossible, Crane said. But even as he spoke the word, he felt the certainty that had defined his entire career beginning to crumble. Humanity is contained. They cannot reach the stations. They cannot even leave their system without triggering immediate shutdown of their drive cores. Station 15 offline, an analyst reported, voice tight with barely controlled panic. Station 9 reporting critical systems failure. Field integrity at 12%. Station 22 gone. Crane watched it happen in real time on the display. The perfect sphere of containment dissolving like morning frost under an unfamiliar sun. 24 stations, 2 centuries of council engineering, failing one by one with the precision of a planned demolition. Not random system failures, not age, not degradation, coordination. He stared at the holographic representation of the Sol system, at humanity's small yellow star, at the 11 billion souls the council had so carefully, so perfectly, so completely contained. And for the first time in 42 years, as Overseer Malthus Crane felt the smallest flutter of something he had never associated with humanity before: fear. The emergency session was called within minutes. The council chamber filled with representatives from every department, their various forms of anxiety translating poorly across dozens of species, but universally understood nonetheless. Crane stood at the central podium, the holographic star map now dominated by the failing containment network, each darkening station a wound in the Council's perfect order. All departments, full situational assessment, he said, his voice projecting the authority his hearts no longer felt. I need to know what we are dealing with. The display had become a nightmare of cascading failures. In the span of 20 minutes, 18 of the 24 containment stations had gone dark. The remaining 6 flickered with unstable readings, their quantum field integrity dropping by percentages with each passing moment. It has to be a systems glitch, insisted technology coordinator Bernal, his secondary arms gesturing frantically at his data tablet. A cascade failure triggered by some factor in the network architecture we did not anticipate. That is the only logical explanation. Logical. Vex's antennae pressed flat against her skull, extreme stress. Show me the logic in 18 independent systems separated by billions of kilometers, failing simultaneously. Show me the logic in identical energy signatures appearing inside sealed stations before each failure. Energy signatures that match no known technology, added Fleet Commander Lysa Thorne from her position at the tactical console. The tall warrior had pulled up comparison databases cross-referencing against every species the Council had on record. I have searched our entire archives. Whatever disabled those stations, we have never encountered it before. Crane felt his secondary heart rate accelerating, a physiological response his species showed only in moments of genuine danger. Could humanity have developed something? Some kind of weapon we did not anticipate? They are contained, Drenth said from across the chamber, but conviction had drained from his voice. They cannot project force beyond their system. That is the entire purpose of the inhibitor network. The inhibitor network that is currently failing, Vex said quietly. Stations 3 and 16 just went offline, an analyst reported from the sensor pit. 4 stations remaining. Estimate complete network collapse in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 2 centuries of containment about to end in 4 minutes. Crane made a decision that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. Fleet Commander Thorne, how quick can we deploy forces to the Sol system? Lysa's tactical display came alive with calculations. 6 hours to assemble a response fleet. 12 hours transit time at maximum military speed. Do it. And Commander Crane locked eyes with the veteran fleet officer. Make it a large fleet. I want overwhelming force available if needed. Overseer Vex stepped closer, lowering her voice, though privacy was an illusion in the packed chamber. With respect, we are talking about humanity, contained for 2 centuries. Even if they have somehow developed a way to disrupt the stations, they are still trapped in one system. What kind of threat can they possibly pose? Before Crane could answer, another alert chimed through the chamber. This one was different. Higher priority. The kind of alert that preceded declarations of war or discoveries of hostile alien intelligence. Overseer called a junior analyst from the communications station, his translator struggling to mask his species' equivalent of terror. We are receiving reports from Border Sector 47, multiple ships reporting sensor anomalies across 17 different systems. Crane pulled up the sector map on his personal display. Border Sector 47 was nowhere near the Sol system. It was, in fact, on the opposite side of Council space, nearly 8,000 light-years distant. What kind of anomalies, he asked, though part of him already knew the answer would be disturbing. Phantom readings, sir. Ships appearing and disappearing on scanners. Mass signatures that do not match visual confirmation. Fleet captains are reporting contacts that sensors detect, but cameras cannot see. Impossible. Even if humanity had somehow broken containment, they could not reach that far. Not in the time between the first station failure and now. The mathematics of faster-than-light travel did not allow for such speed. Unless they were not just breaking out. Unless they had already been out. Vex was scrolling through her tablet with increasing desperation, her fingers moving so fast they blurred. I am pulling historical data running correlation analysis on all sensor anomalies reported in the last 5 years. She stopped. Her antennae went rigid. When she spoke, her voice had gone completely flat, the way scientists sounded when confronting data that shattered fundamental assumptions. Overseer, phantom readings in Border Sector 47 were first reported 6 months ago. Similar reports from Trade Sector 12 9 months ago, Research Sector 8 14 months ago. She looked up, her multiple eyes wide with dawning horror. These anomalies have been appearing all over Council space for the past 2 years. We dismissed them as sensor glitches, equipment malfunctions. We saw exactly what we expected to see. Nothing, Crane finished quietly. because humanity was contained. The word tasted like ash in his mouth. Final 2 stations at 30% integrity, an analyst reported. Estimate complete network failure in 90 seconds. Crane straightened his posture, forcing his voice to remain steady. Get me everything. Every phantom, reading, every sensor anomaly, every unexplained glitch in the last 5 years. I want it on the central display immediately. The data came faster than expected. Someone had already been compiling it. Someone had already noticed the pattern, but had not known what they were seeing. Crane watched as the holographic display populated with markers, hundreds of them, thousands, scattered across every sector of council space like stars in a night sky. Phantom contacts, mass readings without visual confirmation, energy signatures that appeared and vanished, ships that sensor arrays claimed were there, but cameras could not see. All dismissed, all explained away, all ignored, because humanity was contained. Blessed ancients, Vex whispered. What if they have been out here all along, Drenthvon said, and in his voice Crane heard the tone of a soldier, recognizing he had been outmaneuvered on a battlefield he had not known existed. Station 5 offline, the analyst reported. Final station failing, 20 seconds to total network collapse. Crane watched the last quantum inhibitor station die. 207 years of containment, ending not with a bang, but with a series of quiet system failures that spoke of planning, patience, and precision beyond anything the Council had anticipated. The hologram updated. The Sol system sat there on the display, unchanged. No massive fleet emerging. No armada of warships. No visible threat at all. Just 11 billion humans doing whatever they had been doing for the last 2 centuries. While the Council congratulated itself on their perfect cage. Overseer, Fleet Commander Thorne's voice carried an edge Crane had never heard from the veteran warrior. My deep space sensor network just flagged something. Transmission burst. Origin point approximately 15,000 light-years from the Sol system. 15,000 light-years. Halfway across the galaxy. Intercept it, Crane ordered. We cannot. The encryption is... Thorne paused, running her analysis again, as if doubting her own instruments. I have never seen anything like it. But Overseer, the transmission volume is massive. It is not one signal. It is thousands of them all going active simultaneously across the entire galaxy. Crane felt his legs weaken. Thousands of transmissions, simultaneously, as if they had been waiting for something, waiting for a signal, waiting for the containment network to fail. Overseer, the senior communications officer, said, and Crane heard something in her translator he had never heard before. Strain, fear. I'm receiving a communication request. High priority channel. Encryption protocols I do not recognize. She checked her display twice before continuing. Origin claims to be human. But sir, the signal is not coming from the Sol system. It is coming from inside council space. She paused, rechecking as if the data could not possibly be correct. From Council Station Alpha 7, the council chamber went absolutely silent. Alpha 7, the council's primary intelligence hub, positioned deep in the heart of their territory, surrounded by defensive installations staffed entirely by council personnel with the highest security clearances. One of the most secure locations in the entire galaxy, and someone claiming to be human was transmitting from inside it. That is impossible, Vex breathed. Crane straightened his posture, forcing his primary heart rate to slow. He had spent 42 years as Overseer. He had maintained order across 217 species. He had believed with absolute certainty that the Council's containment of humanity was unbreakable. Every certainty he had ever held was collapsing around him. If there was any chance of salvaging this situation, of understanding what was happening, he needed information. Put it through, he said. The holographic star map dissolved, replaced by a simple communication interface. Audio only, no video feed. Whoever was on the other end did not want to be seen. When the voice came through the speakers, it was calm, patient, the tone of someone who had been waiting a very long time for this conversation and could afford to wait a little longer. It was a female voice, the translator rendering it in the common galactic dialect with careful precision. Overseer Malthus Crane, the voice said. My name is Director Elena Terran, Human Intelligence Division. I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but I am afraid we need to have a conversation about the status of humanity's containment. The translator rendered the human language into something the council species could understand. But even through the technological filter, Crane could hear something in her voice. Something that made his carapace prickle with instinctive recognition. Amusement. Crane's vocal cords struggled to form words. His primary hands clenched the podium edge. You are transmitting from Alpha 7. That is impossible. With respect, Overseer, I am afraid your understanding of what is possible where humanity is concerned is approximately 207 years out of date. A pause perfectly timed. I am transmitting my current location data now. Check your tactical display. Vex's fingers flew across her tablet. The holographic display shifted, showing the internal layout of Alpha 7. A single marker appeared pulsing softly in one of the station's secure intelligence analysis rooms, right where a human claimed to be standing. Director Taryn continued, and now Crane could hear the smile in her words. Conference Room 7, Council Central Administration. You are standing approximately 2 meters from the main holographic display. Science Director Vex is to your left, showing significant stress markers in her antenna positioning. War Marshal Drenth is near the tactical console, and he has been reaching for his sidearm for the last 30 seconds. Crane spun, scanning the chamber. How could she see them? The room was secure, shielded, protected by every countermeasure the Council's best engineers could design. How are you? He could not finish the question. Seeing you, Elena Taryn sounded almost sympathetic. The same way we have been seeing everything for the last 2 centuries, Overseer. We have been watching. We have been learning. We have been everywhere. Another pause. Longer this time, letting the implications sink in. We have been quite patient, actually, but you kept insisting we were contained. And well, the amusement in her voice deepened. We thought it was time to correct that misunderstanding. Crane looked at the displays showing the dead containment stations, at the thousands of phantom readings scattered across the galaxy, at the secure council station that somehow housed a human intelligence operative who could describe his chamber in real time. The certainty that had defined his entire career, the belief that had guided council policy for 207 years, shattered like glass under sudden pressure. You were never contained, he said. The words felt heavy as neutronium. Were you? The laugh that came through the speakers was soft, almost gentle, but it carried a weight that made every being in the council chamber understand that the galaxy they thought they knew had fundamentally changed. Oh, we were contained, Overseer Crane, Director Elena Taryn replied, for about 72 hours. After that, we were just observing, studying, waiting to see what you would do. A pause. It has been quite educational. The Crane stood in the center of the council chamber, surrounded by representatives of 47 sectors, each one processing the fact that everything they thought they knew about humanity had been wrong from the very beginning. The containment had not failed. It had never existed at all. And the humans who had been imprisoned for 2 centuries had been free the entire time, moving unseen through the galaxy, watching their watchers with the patient precision of a species that understood the long game better than the Council ever could. Somewhere in the depths of Alpha 7, a human woman who had lived among them for reasons Crane could not yet fathom, waited for his response. The perfect cage, he realized with a crystalline clarity, had always been an illusion. And now the illusion was over. The silence in the council chamber stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Malthus Crane stared at the communication interface, at the simple audio connection that linked him to a human woman sitting inside one of the most secure facilities in council space. His 4 eyes tracked the holographic marker showing her position in Alpha 7. Real time. Precise. Impossible. Director Taryn, he said, forcing his voice to remain level, you claim to have been observing us for 2 centuries. You claim to be transmitting from Alpha 7. I need proof. The laugh that came through the speakers was soft, almost tired, as if she had anticipated this question and found it sadly predictable. Of course you do, Overseer. You have spent your entire career relying on verification, on data, on proof that fits your understanding of how the universe works. A pause. Very well, let me describe your office. Crane felt his secondary heart skip. You keep a small crystalline sculpture on your desk, blue-green, about 15 centimeters tall. It was a gift from your predecessor when you assumed the position of Overseer 42 years ago. The inscription on the base reads, "To Malthus who sees clearly." You look at it every morning when you arrive. It reminds you why you do this work. Crane's primary hands clenched involuntarily. The sculpture was in his private office. No cameras, no recording devices. Only he ever saw it. In the lower right drawer of your desk, Elena continued, her tone measured and professional. You keep a data chip, personal files, messages from your daughter before she died in the border conflict 25 years ago. You have never shared those messages with anyone. You play them sometimes late at night when the station is quiet, Because hearing her voice makes you remember why containment policy matters. Why keeping dangerous species separated prevents the kind of tragedy that took her from you. The chamber had gone deathly silent. Every counselor, every analyst, every officer was staring at Crane. He felt his carapace go cold. "You are lying," he said, but his translator betrayed the uncertainty in his voice. "I am not," Elena replied gently. "And you know I am not because those details are not in any database we could have hacked. They are things only you would know." Which means at some point in the last 4 decades, someone stood close enough to you to see them. Close enough to be in your office. Close enough to watch you when you thought you were alone. She paused, letting the implications settle like ice in his primary stomach. "We have been very close, Overseer Crane, for a very long time." Vex was already at her security console, her chitinous fingers flying across the interface. Running full security audit of Alpha 7, checking personnel records, access logs, surveillance footage. "You will find nothing," Elena said, and now her voice carried a different quality. Professional, clinical, the tone of an intelligence operative explaining tradecraft to an amateur. "We are very good at not being found when we choose not to be. But if you need a more immediate demonstration," the lights in the council chamber flickered. Just once. Just for a fraction of a second. But in that instant, every display in the room showed the same image. A simple message in clean, precise text: "We are here." Then the lights returned. The displays reset. Everything appeared normal. Except now, every being in that chamber understood that their most secure facility, their command center, their seat of power, had just been touched by something they could not detect, could not track, could not stop. "That was just a greeting," Elena said. "Shall we continue our conversation?" War Marshal Drenth moved to the tactical console. He had fought in 3 wars. He had seen boarding actions and fleet engagements in desperate last stands. He knew the look of a battlefield being prepared even when that battlefield was an entire galaxy. "Overseer, Mum," he said quietly, "we need to know what we are facing. We need hard data." Crane nodded. The shock was passing, replaced by the cold clarity that had made him Overseer in the first place. Elena Terran could describe his office, could flicker their lights, could claim anything she wanted. But claims were not proof. Not the kind of proof that would justify the decisions he was about to make. "Director Terran," he said to the air, to the invisible human, listening from somewhere in the depths of Alpha 7. "You have made your point. You have access to our systems. You have been observing us. But if humanity has truly been free for 2 centuries, if you have truly been moving through council space undetected, then prove it. Show me your capabilities." "That is not a request I can grant, Overseer." Elena's voice remained calm. "Because what you are really asking is for us to reveal our operational parameters, our technical specifications, our strategic positioning. You want intelligence you can use, and I am afraid we are not quite ready to provide that level of transparency." "Then we have nothing more to discuss." Crane gestured to the communications officer. "Terminate the connection." "Wait." For the first time, Elena's voice showed something other than perfect control. "Overseer, please. I am not trying to antagonize you. I am trying to prevent a mistake. A terrible mistake that will cost lives on both sides." "What mistake?" "The one you are about to make," Elena said quietly. "The one where you decide that because you cannot see us, we must not be as capable as we claim. The one where you send ships to the Sol system to test our defenses. The one where you prove once and for all that humanity can be threatened into submission." Crane felt his primary hands go still. He had not spoken that order aloud. He had barely formed the thought fully in his own mind. But she knew. Somehow she knew. "We do not want a conflict, Overseer," Elena continued. "But if you force one, I promise you will not like what you discover. Please, give me a chance to explain. Give humanity a chance to show you that we are not the threat you fear, that we never were." Crane looked at Drenth, at Vex, at Fleet Commander Thorne, saw his own uncertainty reflected in their various forms of body language. 48 hours, he said finally. "You have 48 hours to convince me that humanity deserves anything other than recontainment using methods you cannot evade. Starting now." "Thank you, Overseer. That is all I ask." The connection remained open, waiting. And Malthus Crane realized that for the first time in his career, he was negotiating with species he had believed was safely caged. A species that, if Elena Terran was telling the truth, had been free longer than he had been alive. Drenth wasted no time. Within the hour, he had assembled what he called a probe package. 12 combat frigates, small and fast, each one equipped with the latest sensor arrays and enough firepower to handle pirates or raiders. Not a war fleet, not an invasion force, just reconnaissance and strength. We send them to the Sol system, Drenth explained to the assembled command staff. They scan for human vessels, test response times, measure defensive capabilities. If Director Terran is telling the truth, if humanity truly has the kind of fleet she implies, we will see evidence. If she is bluffing, and Overseer, I believe she is bluffing, then we confirm that and proceed accordingly. Crane studied the tactical display. 12 ships. It seemed almost insulting after 2 centuries of containment to send so few. But that was the point. A test, not a threat. Approved, he said. But Marshall, make it absolutely clear to the probe commanders. This is reconnaissance only. No aggressive action unless fired upon. We gather intelligence and withdraw. Understood, Overseer. The 12 frigates departed Council Central within 3 hours. Crane watched them go, watched the faster-than-light signatures fade from the long-range sensors as they transited toward human space. The journey would take 6 hours at maximum military speed. 6 hours to reach the edge of the Sol system. 6 hours to see if humanity's vaunted invisibility was real or elaborate deception. 6 hours to wait. Crane returned to his office. The crystalline sculpture sat on his desk where it always did, blue-green and innocent, catching the light from the overhead panels. He looked at it for a long moment, then opened his lower right drawer. The data chip was there, exactly where Elena had said it would be. He picked it up, felt its weight, felt the weight of the 25 years since his daughter's death. Lyra had been brilliant, passionate about xenobiology, about understanding the species the Council governed. She had died in a border skirmish that the containment protocols were supposed to prevent, a conflict between 2 species that should never have been in contact with each other, a tragedy that had shaped every decision Crane made afterward. Containment saves lives, he had told himself for 2.5 decades. Separation prevents conflict. Control ensures peace. But if Elena was right, if humanity had been free for 2 centuries while the Council believed them caged, then what else might be wrong? What other assumptions might be built on foundations of sand? He put the chip back in the drawer and closed it. The wait began. 6 hours and 14 minutes after departure, the probe fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system. Crane stood in the Tactical Operations Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time telemetry from each frigate. Vex was at the science station monitoring sensor feeds. Drenth commanded from the tactical podium, rigid with focus. All units reporting successful transit, the communications officer announced. They are entering the Sol system now. Initial scans beginning. The holographic display showed the 12 frigates in loose formation, spreading out to cover maximum sensor range. They moved past the outer planets, past the gas giants with their rings and moons, deeper into the system where humanity lived and worked. No response. No challenge. No visible defenses. Sensor readings, Crane asked. Vex studied her displays, detecting normal industrial signatures, orbital stations around the major planets, mining operations in the asteroid belt, standard civilian traffic patterns. No military vessels detected. None, Drenth's voice carried skepticism. After Director Terran's claims, we find nothing. The system appears undefended, Vex said slowly, or at least undefended by anything our sensors can detect. The probe fleet moved deeper, past Mars, past Earth's moon, into the inner system, where the human homeworld hung blue and white and beautiful against the black. Still nothing. No challenge, no contact. No sign that humanity even noticed 12 armed warships entering their space. Commander reports they are achieving optimal scan position, the communications officer said, beginning detailed sensor sweep of Earth orbit and near-system space. Crane watched the displays, watched the frigates move with practiced precision into a scanning formation that would map every cubic kilometer of the inner Sol system. Watched the data begin to flow back to Council Central, industrial platforms, civilian transports, communication satellites, all the infrastructure of a thriving but contained civilization. No weapons, no warships, no evidence of the vast invisible fleet Elena Terran had implied. Overseer Drenth said quietly, I believe Director Terran was engaging in psychological warfare, trying to make us believe in capabilities that do not exist. The Sol system is... Every display in the Tactical Operations Center went dark simultaneously, not flickering, not failing, just dark. As if someone had flipped a switch and turned off every sensor feed, every communication channel, every data stream from the probe fleet. Get it back, Crane ordered, his voice sharp. Working on it, Vex said, her fingers flying across her console. All telemetry links severed. Not degraded, not jammed, severed, as if the ships just ceased to exist. Try direct communication, emergency channels. The communications officer worked his board trying frequency after frequency. No response on any channel, Overseer. I am not even getting carrier signals. It is as if the ships are not there. How long until our long-range sensors can confirm their position? Crane demanded. Vex checked her calculations. At this distance, light speed lag means we will not have visual confirmation for another 8 minutes. But Overseer, the telemetry cutoffs were simultaneous across all 12 vessels. Whatever happened, it happened to all of them at exactly the same moment. But Drenth's hands were already moving over the tactical display, running combat scenarios, calculating response options. If this is an attack, if humanity has destroyed our probe fleet, we do not know that yet, Crane said, but his secondary heart was racing. 12 ships, gone in an instant. No warning, no distress calls, just silence. The minutes crawled past like hours. Crane stood rigid before the displays, waiting for the light speed delay to catch up, waiting to see what had happened to his ships. At 8 minutes and 43 seconds, the long-range optical sensors updated. The probe fleet was still there. All 12 frigates still in formation, still apparently intact. But they were drifting. No maneuvering, no power signatures. Like toys someone had forgotten to wind up. Get me visual magnification, Crane ordered. The holographic display zoomed in, enhancing the image until they could see details. And there on each frigate's hull, visible even across millions of kilometers, were perfectly circular holes, clean, precise, punched straight through the armored plating from bow to stern. Kinetic impact, Vex whispered, reading the spectroscopic analysis. Tungsten carbide projectiles, velocity estimated at 0.3 light speed. The impacts were... She paused, rechecking her numbers as if they could not possibly be correct. Simultaneous across all 12 targets. Margin of error, less than 1 millisecond. Drenth stared at the display. 12 ships, 12 simultaneous kills. Perfect accuracy at... He checked the range calculations. At over 2 million kilometers, using kinetic projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. That level of targeting precision should not be possible, Vex said. The computational power required to calculate intercept trajectories for 12 independently maneuvering targets, accounting for light speed lag and relativistic effects firing at exactly the right moment so all projectiles arrive simultaneously. She stopped, looked at Crane, and in her multiple eyes he saw the same realization dawning that was crystallizing in his own mind. This was not just an attack. This was a demonstration. A message delivered with mathematical perfection that said, we can kill anything you send. We can do it from ranges you cannot counter. We can do it with precision you cannot match. And we chose to let your crews survive by targeting the ships, not the crew compartments. They could have killed everyone. They had shown restraint, which meant they wanted something other than blood. Rescue operations, Crane said, his voice hollow. Get recovery ships to those frigates. I want every crew member brought back safely. Already dispatching, Drenth said. Overseer, we need to discuss response options. This was an act of war. No, Crane turned to face him. This was a warning. They could have destroyed those ships completely. They could have killed the crews. They chose not to. They chose to show us they could have but did not. The communication console chimed, the same encrypted signal from before. Elena Terran. Crane did not hesitate this time. Put her through. The voice that came through the speakers carried no triumph, no gloating, just the same measured professional tone. Overseer Crane, I am sorry it came to that, truly. But you needed to understand that our claims were not empty, that our capabilities are real. Your crews are unharmed. We targeted the vessel's drive systems and power cores, not the crew sections. They will need rescue, but they will survive. You fired on council vessels, Crane said. You committed an act of war. We defended our territory from armed warships that entered without permission, Elena corrected gently. Under council law, that is not only legal, it is expected. You sent a military force into the Sol system. We responded proportionally and with restraint. Would you have preferred we did nothing? Allowed armed vessels to scan our defenses and report back without consequence? Crane had no answer, because she was right. Any species would have done the same. The only difference was that humanity had done it with capabilities the Council did not know existed. The weapon you used, Vex interjected, the kinetic projectiles, that technology should not exist at that performance level. The targeting computers alone are approximately 60 years ahead of current council standards. Elena finished. Yes, that is what happens when you give a species 2 centuries of isolation and a pressing need to develop defensive capabilities you cannot detect. We had time, Director Vex. We had motivation. And we had the freedom to innovate without anyone watching over our shoulder telling us what was possible. How many ships, Drenth demanded? How many vessels does humanity have? Enough, Elena said simply. Enough to defend ourselves. Enough to make recontainment impossible. But not so many that we pose an existential threat to the Council. We are not interested in conquest, Marshal. We are interested in freedom. Crane sank into his command chair. 12 ships disabled in an instant. Weapons technology decades ahead of Council capabilities. An intelligence operative who had lived inside their most secure facility for reasons he still did not understand. And through it all, Elena Terran's calm professional voice explaining that humanity had never been the threat the Council feared. What do you want? He asked finally. Right now, I want you to stand down your fleet mobilization. I know you have 300 warships assembling. We are for deployment to the Sol system. I want you to cancel that order before this situation escalates beyond our ability to control it. How did she know the fleet assembly was classified? Eyes only, known only to the highest levels of Council command. But of course she knew. They had been watching for 2 centuries, learning every detail of Council operations, mapping every strength and weakness. And if I refuse, Crane asked, then those 300 ships will arrive at the Sol system and they will discover what 12 probe frigates just learned. That humanity has defensive capabilities you cannot overcome. That we can destroy your vessels faster than you can deploy them. That a military solution to this situation does not exist. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, gentler. Overseer Crane, I have watched you for a long time. I know you are a good being. I know you believe in the Council's mission. I know you carry the weight of your daughter's death and that it shapes every decision you make. I know you want to prevent more tragedies like the one that took her from you. Then you know why containment matters, Crane said. I know why you think it matters, Elena corrected. But Overseer, what if I told you that the conflict that killed your daughter would never have happened if the Council's containment policies did not exist? What if I told you that by trying to prevent species from interacting, you created the very tensions that led to violence? That is speculation. It is analysis based on 2 centuries of observation. We have watched the Council's containment policies in action. We have seen how they create resentment, how they generate exactly the kind of conflict they are meant to prevent. Your daughter did not die because species were too close. She died because the Council's restrictions created artificial pressure that eventually exploded. Crane closed his primary eyes. He did not want to hear this, did not want to confront the possibility that the belief that had sustained him for 25 years might be built on false premises. The fleet assembly, Elena said quietly. Please, Overseer, stand it down. Give me a chance to show you another way, a way that honors your daughter's memory by learning from her death, not by repeating the mistakes that caused it. Crane opened his eyes, looked at the displays showing his disabled frigates, at the phantom contacts scattered across every Council sector, at the future rushing toward him like a projectile traveling at 0.3 light speed. He had a choice to make, and he was terrified that whichever way he chose it would be wrong. The 300 warships of Battlefleet Prime held position at the staging area, waiting for deployment orders that would send them to the Sol system. Crane could see them on the long-range tactical display, the most powerful concentration of military force the Council had assembled in living memory. Enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Enough ships to blockade an entire star system. And according to Elena Terran, not enough to overcome whatever humanity had built in 2 centuries of hidden freedom. Drenth stood across the command center, his body reflecting the tactical displays. Overseer, we cannot let this stand. They attacked our vessels. They have violated every principle of containment. If we do not respond with force, we show weakness to every species under Council governance. And if we do respond with force, Crane countered quietly, and if Director Terran is correct about their capabilities, then we sacrifice 300 ships and thousands of lives to prove a point, to demonstrate that Council authority matters more than Council lives. It is not about authority. It is about maintaining order. Is it, Crane turned to face the veteran, or is it about the fact that for 300 years the Council has believed it understood the rules by which the galaxy operates, that we knew what was possible and what was not, that we could classify species, contain them, manage them like livestock? He gestured to the displays. Humanity has shown us that we were wrong. About containment, about capability, about what is possible when a species has sufficient motivation and time. We can either accept that reality and adapt, or we can deny it and send thousands of our people to die proving nothing except our own pride. Drenth's translator remained silent for a long moment. Then, what are you saying, Overseer? I am saying we need more information before we commit to military action. We need to understand what we are truly facing. Crane turned to the communications console. Get me Director Taryn again. The connection established almost instantly, as if she had been waiting. Overseer Charlena's voice said, you say you have been observing us for 2 centuries. You say we have been wrong about containment, about humanity, about the galaxy itself. Prove it. Not with demonstrations of force, not with parlor tricks flickering our lights. Prove it with truth. Show me what you have learned. Show me why I should believe that standing down this fleet is the right choice. Silence. For several seconds, no response came. Then very well, Overseer, but what I am about to show you will change everything you believe about the Council, about your career, and about the death of your daughter. Are you certain you want that truth? Crane felt his secondary heart hammering. Part of him wanted to say no, to retreat into the comfortable certainty of his beliefs, to never question the foundations on which he had built his entire life. But he was overseer of the Galactic Containment Council. And if there was one thing his 4 decades of service had taught him, it was that truth, however painful, was always preferable to comfortable lies. Show me, he said. Stand by, Elena replied. I am transmitting data files now, encrypted, for your eyes only. What you choose to do with this information afterward is your decision. Crane's personal display chimed with an incoming data package. Massive. Terabytes of information compressed into formats that should not have been able to penetrate Council security architecture. But they had. Of course they had. He opened the first file, and his understanding of the galaxy began to crumble. The data files filled his display with information that rewrote history. 25 years of classified Council intelligence reports, surveillance footage from border sectors, communication intercepts that should have been impossible to obtain. And buried among the terabytes of data, one file marked with his daughter's name. Lyra Crane, deceased. Border Conflict 7. Alpha. 25 years ago. His primary hands trembled as he opened it. The file contained incident reports, tactical analyses, diplomatic communications. Everything the Council knew about the conflict that had killed his daughter. Everything he had read 100 times in the years since her death, trying to understand why she had to die. But this file contained something more. Something the Council's official reports had never shown him. Communication intercepts between the 2 species that had clashed in that border region. Messages that revealed a pattern Crane had never seen before. Both species had been under observation by the Council. Both had been classified as potentially dangerous. Both had been subject to movement restrictions designed to keep them separated. And for decades, those restrictions had held. Until they created exactly the pressure they were meant to prevent. The intercepted communications showed it clearly. Trade disputes that could not be resolved because Council restrictions prevented direct negotiation. Resource conflicts that escalated because species could not meet to discuss boundaries. Resentment building year after year as both sides felt imprisoned by rules they had never agreed to follow. The border conflict had not happened despite containment protocols. It had happened because of them. Crane read through message after message, saw the frustration mounting, saw the anger building, saw the moment when diplomatic options closed and violence became the only language left. And Lyra had died not preventing a war, but as a casualty of the very system her father had spent his life maintaining. He sat in his office chair, staring at the data, feeling the weight of 25 years of certainty collapsing. He had told himself that containment saved lives, that separation prevented conflict, that his daughter's death had meaning because it reinforced the importance of keeping dangerous species apart. But the truth was darker, more complicated, more painful. The containment protocols had not prevented the conflict. They had caused it. His daughter had died because the Council believed it knew better than the species it governed. Because they had imposed restrictions without understanding the consequences. Because they had prioritized control over communication. Separation over cooperation. Certainty over wisdom. Crane closed the file on Lyra. His hands were shaking. He opened another. This one showed current containment operations. 12 different species scattered across Council space, each one subject to restrictions similar to humanity's. Each one showing signs of the same pressure building, the same resentment festering. The files contained everything. Population data, economic analyses, intercepted communications showing growing discontent, projections of when each species might reach a breaking point, and woven through it all, evidence of human observation. Notes from agents who had been watching these species for decades. Analysis that showed humanity understood the Council's failures better than the Council understood them themselves. 12 powder kegs waiting for a spark. 12 more potential tragedies like the one that had killed his daughter, all because the Council refused to learn, refused to question, refused to admit that containment created the very problems it claimed to solve. Overseer Vex's voice came from nearby, tentative. "Are you well?" Crane looked up. His senior staff surrounded him, Vex Drenth Fleet Commander Thorne. They had been watching him read for the past hour, watching his carapace darken with emotions his species showed only under extreme stress. He needed to share this, needed them to understand what he had learned, but the words would not come. How could he explain that everything they believed was built on foundations that had never been solid? Director Terran, he said to the open communication channel. "The other species you mentioned, the 12 under containment protocols. You said you have contacted them." Elena's voice came through the speakers, still measured and professional. "6 months ago, we began reaching out, carefully, secretly, offering them what we had discovered, the technology to move unseen to break containment without the Council knowing. Some accepted, some refused, but all of them now know that the cage has a door." "You are fomenting rebellion," Drenth growled. "We are offering freedom," Elena corrected. "There is a difference, Marshal. We are not telling them to fight. We are showing them that they have choices beyond submission or conflict, that they can exist in this galaxy on their own terms, not on the Council's." Crane stood slowly, his joints aching in a way that made him feel every one of his 64 years. "And if I stand down the battle fleet, if I choose not to pursue military action against humanity, what happens then? Then we have a conversation about what comes next, about how humanity and the Council coexist, about how we prevent the mistakes of the past from being repeated." A pause. "And about how we handle the new species that is about to arrive at your borders." Every display in the command center flickered simultaneously. New data appeared, sensor readings from the Outer Council territories, an unidentified faster-than-light signature approaching from beyond mapped space, moving with the cautious speed of a species that had just discovered they were not alone in the universe. The Ori, Vex said, reading the analysis scrolling across her display. "Early FTL capability. Origin point approximately 800 light-years beyond current Council borders. They are broadcasting what appears to be a greeting message in their own language." Crane watched the approaching signature. Another species taking their first tentative steps into the galactic community. Another civilization about to discover that the Council governed through observation and containment. Another potential powder keg, unless something changed. Automated containment protocols are initializing, an analyst reported. System is calculating optimal inhibitor station placement. Deployment orders generating for approval. The same process that had imprisoned humanity 207 years ago. The same system that had created the pressure that killed his daughter. The same cycle repeating because the Council believed it was the only way to maintain order. "Belay those orders," Crane said quietly. The command center went silent. Drenth turned to stare at him. "Overseer protocol requires—" "I am aware of what protocol requires, Marshal." Crane's voice carried an edge it rarely held. "I am also aware that our protocols have failed, that our assumptions were wrong, that our certainty was built on foundations that never existed. So before we imprison another species because we fear what they might become, I want to try something different." He turned to face Elena's communication channel. "Director Terran, you want to prove that humanity is not a threat. You want to show that there is another way. Then help us make first contact with the Ori, properly, as equals. Show me that your 2 centuries of observation taught you something we missed." The silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then Elena's voice came through, and for the first time Crane heard genuine emotion in it. Relief, hope, something that sounded almost like gratitude. "Thank you, Overseer. We would be honored." The Ori vessel appeared on long-range sensors 3 hours later. It was small, elegant, built with the kind of careful engineering that spoke of a species that had worked for generations to achieve faster-than-light capability. The ship moved cautiously toward the Council border, broadcasting greetings in a language the translator matrices struggled to parse. Crane stood in the observation deck watching the approach. Beside him, Vex worked on establishing communication protocols. Drenth monitored tactical displays with the wariness of a soldier who had learned never to fully trust a ceasefire. Overseer, the communications officer announced. We have an incoming transmission, source identified as human. Origin point is... The officer paused, checking the reading twice. Origin point is the Ori vessel. What? Drenth moved to the tactical console. How is that possible? The Ori just arrived at council borders. They could not have made contact with humanity. The distances are too great. The timeline does not work. But Crane was beginning to understand, beginning to see the scope of what humanity had accomplished in 2 centuries of hidden freedom. Put it through, he said. The voice that came through the speakers was different this time. Still human, still translated into council standard, but younger. Female, carrying the careful pronunciation of someone speaking a language learned later in life. Overseer Crane, this is Ambassador Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. I am aboard the Ori vessel, Dawn's Promise, serving as a liaison between humanity and the Ori people. We have been in contact with them for approximately 6 months, helping them prepare for first contact with the broader galactic community. 6 months. Humanity had known about the Ori for half a year, had reached them, first made contact, established relationships, all while the Council remained unaware they even existed. You had no right, Drenth said. First contact protocols are Council jurisdiction. With respect, Marshal the Ori are not within Council borders. They are independent, and they had every right to choose who they spoke with first. A pause. They chose us because we offered them something the Council never has. A choice. Vex was already analyzing the data. The timeline is possible, Overseer. If humanity has vessels capable of the speeds Director Terran implied, they could have reached the Ori home system weeks before our deep space sensors detected their launch. Could have been observing them for months, years even. Crane felt the weight of it settling onto his carapace like gravitational pressure. Humanity had not just broken free of containment, they had built an intelligence network that spanned sectors the Council did not even monitor. They had made first contact with new species before those species even knew the Council existed. They had shaped the future of galactic civilization from the shadows while the Council believed itself the only power that mattered. I want to speak with the Ori directly, Crane said. Of course, Overseer. Patching you through to Captain Zalus now. The communication shifted. When the new voice came through, it carried the translated tones of a young being facing something enormous and terrifying and wonderful all at once. The voice of someone seeing the universe expand beyond everything they had imagined. This is Captain Zalus of the Ori Exploration Corps. Are we truly speaking with the Galactic Council? You are, Kaibe, Crane said, and worked to keep his voice gentle. Welcome to the greater galactic community, Captain. We are here to contain us. The young captain's voice held no accusation, only curiosity. Ambassador Okonkwo explained that your protocols might require our restriction, that you might see us as a threat because we are new and unknown. She wanted us to understand what we might face. Crane's secondary heart clenched. Captain, I assure you. It is well, Overseer. The ambassador also explained that you are kind, that you believe you are protecting us, that your intentions are good even if your methods create the problems they mean to prevent. A pause. She said you lost a daughter to conflict born from the very restrictions you maintain. I am sorry for your loss. Crane stood frozen. Elena had told them, had shared his personal tragedy with this stranger, but not to mock him, not to use it as leverage, to help the Ori understand him, to build empathy where there might have been only fear. Captain Zalus, he said carefully, what is it you want from this first contact? What do you hope to achieve? Trade, knowledge, friendship perhaps, if such things are possible, across species. The young captain's voice carried hope like starlight. We have been alone for so long, looking up at the stars and wondering if anyone else was out there. Now we know. Now we have found not just one species, but many. We want to be part of that, to learn, to share what we have discovered. And the humans, what have they offered you? Protection, Jealous said simply. They warned us that some galactic powers might see new species as threats to be managed, rather than neighbors to be welcomed. They offered to help us navigate first contact, to stand with us if we needed support. They asked nothing in return except that we make our own choices about our future. Crane looked at the tactical display, at the Ori vessel with its human ambassador aboard, at the opportunity to do first contact differently, to prove that the Council could learn, could adapt, could be better than its history. Captain Zalus, he said, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend formal greeting and welcome. We would be honored to establish diplomatic relations with the Ori people. We offer trade knowledge exchange and membership in the broader galactic community, without restriction, without containment, as equals. The silence that followed felt like the universe holding its breath. Truly, Zealous's voice was barely a whisper. Truly, Crane said, and meant it. But Drenth was not finished fighting. The veteran moved to the center of the command deck, his body rigid with military bearing. Overseer, with respect, you are making decisions based on emotion rather than strategic analysis. We still do not know the full extent of human capabilities. We have not verified their claims. We cannot simply take their word that they are not a threat. What would constitute verification, Marshal? Crane asked. They disabled 12 of our frigates without killing anyone. They demonstrated capabilities we did not know existed. They have been inside our most secure facilities for decades. What more proof do you need? Combat capability assessment, full tactical demonstration. I want to see what they have before I recommend standing down Battlefleet Prime. Crane saw Elena's strategy then, saw why she had been so patient, so willing to wait. She had known that someone like Drenth would demand proof, would need to see human military capability before accepting that recontainment was impossible. And she had been prepared to give it to them. Director Taryn, Crane said to the open channel, the Marshal wants a demonstration of human military capability. Can you provide that without escalating to actual conflict? We can, Overseer, though I warn you what we are about to show may be unsettling. We have spent 2 centuries developing defensive technologies that the Council considers excessive. Proceed. Drenth pulled up the tactical display showing Battlefleet Prime. 300 warships holding at the staging area enough firepower to conquer entire systems. He highlighted a cluster of 6 older dreadnoughts positioned at the edge of the formation. Heavy vessels, each one the size of a small city built with armor plating that could withstand sustained bombardment. Can your forces engage those 6 targets from your current position? Drenth asked. Without crossing into Council defensive perimeter. We can, Elena confirmed. Though I want to be clear, this is a demonstration against empty vessels. We are not firing on crewed ships. Is that acceptable? Drenth worked his console. The 6 dreadnoughts I highlighted are scheduled for decommissioning. Skeleton crews only, and they are evacuating now. You will have 6 empty targets in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, the tactical display confirmed all crew transfers complete. 6 massive dreadnoughts floating in formation, each one a testament to Council military engineering. Empty. Waiting. Targets confirmed empty, Drenth said. Proceed when ready. Stand by, Elena replied, bringing designated asset into position. On the long-range sensors, something changed. A mass signature appeared where nothing had been visible moments before. Enormous, larger than any Council vessel. The sensor returns showed a ship approximately 4 kilometers long, bristling with systems that the tactical computers struggled to classify. Human flagship Remembrance, Elena announced. Spinal-mounted mass accelerator system. We call it Project Heimdall. The weapon uses magnetic acceleration to propel a 10 metric ton tungsten carbide slug to 0.4 light speed. Impact energy approximately 230 megatons equivalent. Vex's antennae went rigid. 0.4 light speed. That is the targeting calculations alone. Are handled by quantum state processors we developed 80 years ago. Elena continued. Firing solution locked. Single projectile will engage all 6 targets in sequence. Demonstrating now. The human ship fired. There was no visible beam, no energy signature that Council sensors could detect as a weapon discharge, just a subtle shift in the ship's position as it compensated for recoil. 3.2 seconds later, the first dreadnought exploded. Not cracked, not damaged. Exploded. The 10-ton projectile, moving at 0.4 light speed, hit the vessel amidships with kinetic energy that vaporized everything in its path. The dreadnought's armored hull provided no more resistance than paper. The projectile punched through from bow to stern, creating a wound channel 2 meters wide that simply erased everything it touched. But the projectile did not stop. It continued through space at relativistic velocity, its trajectory calculated with precision that should not have been possible. 3.8 seconds after the first impact, it hit the second dreadnought. Same result. Complete penetration, catastrophic structural failure. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. 6 capital ships, each one larger than any vessel most Council species had ever built, destroyed in sequence by a single projectile. Total engagement time 14.3 seconds. The tactical display showed the aftermath. 6 expanding debris clouds where moments before had stood 2 millennia of accumulated Council military engineering. One human ship undamaged, already cloaking back into invisibility. The command center was absolutely silent. Drent stared at the display. His body had gone pale, a physiological response his species showed only in the face of threats they could not overcome. That was one ship, he said quietly. One weapon, one shot. We have 43,000 vessels of various classes, Elena said, and her voice carried no pride, no triumph. Just fact. 12,000 mounting weapons comparable to Heimdall. We have been building this fleet for 2 centuries, Overseer Crane. Building it in secret, testing it in the dark places between stars, preparing for the day when we might need to defend our freedom, she paused. We do not want to use these weapons against the Council. We do not want war. But if Battlefleet Prime deploys to the Sol system, if you force us to choose between submission and survival, then we will choose survival. And we will win. Not because we are cruel or aggressive, but because we have had 207 years to prepare for exactly this confrontation. Crane looked at Drent, saw in the veteran's eyes the recognition of military reality. The understanding that the 300 ships of Battlefleet Prime would last perhaps 30 minutes against what humanity had built. That recontainment was not just difficult, it was impossible. Stand down the battle fleet, Crane said quietly. Overseer. That is an order, Marshal. Stand down Battlefleet Prime. Cancel all deployment preparations. Humanity has proven their point. Drent's translator remained silent for a long moment. Then, as you command, Overseer. He turned to his console and began issuing orders. 300 warships receiving instructions to disperse, to return to normal patrol duties, to abandon the military solution that had seemed so necessary hours before. Vex moved closer to Crane. Overseer, what are we going to do? If humanity has this level of capability, if the other contained species are learning from them, then our entire governance structure is built on false premises, Crane finished. Yes, I am beginning to understand that. He looked at the communication console. Director Terran, you said you wanted a conversation about what comes next. I believe we are ready for that conversation now. The terms Elena presented were simple. Stark, non-negotiable. First, immediate dissolution of all containment networks. Not just for humanity, but for every species the Council had imprisoned. No more quantum inhibitor stations, no more movement restrictions. No more governance through isolation. Second, full diplomatic recognition for humanity, embassy exchanges, trade negotiations, scientific cooperation. All the standard protocols the Council extended to other species extended now to the civilization they had tried to cage for 2 centuries. Third, complete access to Council historical archives. Every record of first contact with every species the Council had encountered. Every classified file about containment protocols. Transparency about how the Council had operated for 300 years. Fourth, formal reformation of first contact procedures. New protocols that emphasize cooperation rather than control. Partnership rather than paternalism. Species allowed to make their own choices about their future rather than having those choices made for them. Crane listened to the terms and felt the weight of 3 centuries of Council policy collapsing. Every principle his career had been built upon, every certainty that had guided his decisions, revealed as fundamentally flawed. If we agree to these terms, he said slowly, what guarantee do we have that humanity will not use their capabilities to dominate the galaxy, that you will not become the very threat we feared? You have no guarantee, Elena said honestly, just as we had no guarantee when we broke containment that the Council would not attempt to re-imprison us through force. Trust, Overseer, is built through action over time. We can only show you through our choices that we mean what we say, that we want partnership, not conquest. She paused. But if you need more immediate reassurance, consider this. We have had 2 centuries to strike at the Council. 2 centuries where we could have sabotaged your infrastructure, assassinated your leaders, sown chaos throughout your territories. We did none of those things. We watched. We learned. We protected you from threats you never saw coming. We could have been your worst nightmare. We chose to be invisible friends instead. Crane thought about the 3 threats Elena had mentioned earlier in their conversations. The ones humanity had prevented while the Council remained unaware. Acts of protection that no one would ever know about because humanity had chosen anonymity over recognition. And the other species, he asked. The 12 under containment protocols. If we release them, what stops them from following humanity's example? From building their own hidden fleets and challenging Council authority? Nothing, Elena admitted. Some may do exactly that, Some may choose to remain isolated. Some may seek partnership with the Council on new terms. But Overseer, that is the point. They should have the choice. Just as humanity should have had a choice 207 years ago. Freedom is not something you grant when it is convenient. It is something you recognize as a fundamental right. The communication console chimed, multiple incoming signals. The analyst at the station looked up, expression stunned. Overseer, we are receiving transmissions from 12 different species across Council space, all of them broadcasting on the same encrypted frequency, and all of them transmitting the same message. What message? Crane asked, though he already knew the answer. They are demanding the termination of containment protocols. They are citing Council law regarding restrictions on spacefaring civilizations. And they are all transmitting from positions that should be impossible inside the containment zones, but outside the inhibitor networks. Vex pulled up the tactical display. 12 different sectors, 12 different species. Each one showing faster than light signatures in locations that should have been blocked by quantum inhibitor stations. Humanity had shared their technology, had taught a dozen imprisoned civilizations how to slip through the cages the Council had built, and now all of them were declaring their freedom simultaneously. This is coordinated, Drenth said, a planned uprising. This is inevitable, Crane corrected quietly. We built cages and called it governance. We imprisoned species and called it protection. We controlled the galaxy and called it peace. But control is not peace, Marshal. Control is just delayed conflict. And eventually every cage breaks. He turned to face his senior staff. Saw in their various expressions the same uncertainty he felt, the same fear of the unknown that came with watching the familiar world crumble. But he also saw possibility, the chance to build something better from the ruins of what had failed. Summon the full council, he said. Emergency session, every sector representative. I'm going to recommend that we accept humanity's terms. All of them. Overseer, the council will never agree, Vex said. You are asking them to dismantle 3 centuries of policy. I am asking them to acknowledge reality, that the policy failed, that we were wrong, that continuing to insist we were right will only lead to the very conflicts we sought to prevent. He looked at the displays showing 13 different species declaring their freedom. We can fight this. We can attempt to reestablish containment through force. We can prove to ourselves and the galaxy that Council authority matters more than Council wisdom. Or we can learn. We can adapt. We can become the organization we always claimed to be shepherds of galactic peace, not wardens of galactic prisons. The Council session convened 4 hours later. Representatives from 47 sectors materialized via holographic link into filling the chamber with the varied forms of Council governance. Crane stood at the central podium and told them everything. The failed containment, the human capabilities, the choice before them. The debate lasted 6 hours. Some counselors demanded war. Some called for negotiation. Some argued for maintaining partial containment while loosening restrictions. Every faction had their reasons, their principles, their certainties about how the galaxy should operate. But in the end, when the vote came, it was surprisingly close. 58 in favor of accepting humanity's terms. 42 opposed. Not a landslide. Not a mandate. Just a slim majority of counselors willing to admit that perhaps after 300 years they had been wrong. Drenth resigned his commission immediately after the vote. He would not serve a council that, in his view, had surrendered its authority. Crane accepted the resignation with sadness but understanding. Some beings could not adapt to paradigm shifts that shattered their core beliefs. He only hoped he was not one of them. 3 days later, Malthus Crane stood in the observation deck of Council Central Station and watched the future arrive. The Ari vessel approached slowly, broadcasting greetings in their newly learned galactic standard. Beside it, keeping pace like a guardian escort, came a human ship. Not a warship, not one of the massive stealth vessels that had lurked invisible for 2 centuries. Just a diplomatic courier, elegant and small, openly displaying its registry for all Council sensors to see. Humanity emerging from the shadows, choosing to be seen. The ships docked simultaneously. Crane had insisted on that detail: equal arrival, equal access, equal treatment. First contact done properly, done with respect. He walked to the docking bay with Vex beside him. His senior staff had wanted security escorts, but Crane refused. This moment required trust, not suspicion. Required hope, not fear. The Ari airlock cycled first. Captain Jalis emerged young and uncertain, but trying hard to project confidence. The young captain's species was bipedal with iridescent skin that shifted colors with emotion. Right now, those colors showed nervousness mixed with excitement. Overseer Crane Jalas said, the translator, rendering the greeting with careful formality. Thank you for welcoming us. The honor is ours, Captain. Welcome to Council Central. The human airlock opened. And for the first time in 207 years, a human being stepped openly into council space. She was old. That was Crane's first thought. White hair and dark skin weathered with age. She moved slowly but with dignity, with the bearing of someone who had spent a lifetime in command and knew exactly what authority looked like. Overseer Crane, the human, said, her translator, rendering the words with measured cadence. I am Admiral Maya Okonkwo, United Earth Diplomatic Corps. I am honored to meet you face to face after all this time. Maya, Elena had mentioned an Admiral Maya in their conversations. Fourth generation Stealth Fleet Command, 73 years old enough to remember the stories of containment from her grandparents, old enough to have fought in the shadows for humanity's freedom her entire life. Admiral Dick Crane said, the honor is mine, though I confess I expected Director Taryn. Maya's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. Director Taryn is 67 years old, overseer. She has spent 43 of those years living in disguise among species not her own, maintaining cover stories that required her to abandon everything she loved. She has earned her retirement. I am here to begin what she made possible. 67, Elena had been 24 when she went undercover, volunteering to spend her entire adult life in enemy territory, never seeing her family again, never revealing her true self, sacrificing everything so that future generations of humanity might be free. She must have been extraordinary, Crane said quietly. She was, Maya agreed. She is. And she wanted me to tell you that she understood your daughter, that she knew what it felt like to lose someone to conflicts born from misunderstanding, that she hoped you would find peace in knowing that Lyra's death was not in vain, that it taught you the lessons needed to change the future. Crane felt his carapace tighten. How did she? Because she spent 4 decades studying you, overseer, learning what drove you, what shaped you, what you believed and why you believed it. Not to manipulate you, but to understand you, so that when this day came, when humanity finally revealed itself, we could speak to you, not as enemies, but as beings who shared the same fundamental desire. Maya's dark eyes met his. To prevent more tragedies, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to build something better than what came before. Captain Jalas was watching the exchange with fascination, skin shifting through colors that Crane was beginning to recognize as curiosity and hope. Shall we discuss the future? Crane asked. All of us together, as equals. Maya extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Crane had studied it during the 3 days of preparation, knew what it meant. An offer of partnership, of trust, of mutual respect. He reached out with his primary hand and clasped hers carefully, mindful of the strength difference between their species. Yes, Maya said, let us discuss the future. We have been waiting 207 years for this conversation. We can be patient a little longer. They walked together through the corridors of Council Central, a council overseer who had built his career on containment, a human admiral who had spent her life fighting that containment from the shadows, an Ori captain seeing the galaxy for the first time, 3 beings from 3 different worlds choosing partnership over conflict, hope over fear, possibility over certainty. Behind them, through the observation windows, ships from a dozen species moved in formation. Council vessels and human stealth craft and Ori explorers no longer separated by invisible barriers, no longer divided by protocols built on assumptions that had never been true. The galaxy was changing, had already changed. The cages were opening, the Watchers were stepping into the light, and the future that humanity had fought for, that Elena Taryn had sacrificed her entire adult life to make possible, was finally beginning. In his office later that day, Crane sat alone and removed the data chip from his drawer. He listened to his daughter's voice one final time, heard her talking about her dreams of understanding the alien species the Council governed, of building bridges instead of walls, of proving that different species could coexist without fear if given the chance. Lyra had believed in that future, had died before seeing it. But perhaps, Crane thought as he listened to her voice echo through the empty office, perhaps her death had not been meaningless. Perhaps it had taught him the lesson he needed to learn. That control could not prevent tragedy, that cages could not guarantee safety, that the only path to real peace was through the terrifying, uncertain process of trusting others to make their own choices. He saved the recording, put the chip back carefully, and for the first time in 25 years, he felt something that might have been peace settling onto his carapace. The containment era was over. The era of partnership was beginning. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, 43,000 human vessels continued their eternal patrol, not conquering, not threatening, just watching, protecting, ready to answer when someone called for help, ready to defend the freedom they had fought so hard to win. The galaxy would never be the same. The Watchers had been watching all along, and now finally everyone knew it.